Glow 365 presents the Sisters of Faith Show, hosted by your girl, Lady Q. I am a certified relationship coach, life coach, and an evangelist who will be sharing conversations on real life topics such as being a Christian facing real issues, making intentional decisions, and how to see God in our day to day life, and much more. And now, here's Coach Lady Q. Love and blessings, and welcome to the Sisters of Faith show presented by Glow 365. I am your host, Coach Lady Q, and thank you for tuning in to CRRFM.com. Today, we will be taking the time to talk about National Suicide Prevention Week, as well as self care, since it is Self Care Awareness Month. Now, this month we've been dealing with the National Suicide Prevention Week because there are people who have oftentimes been in a dark space. There are people who have had to deal with some things in their life and unfortunately have taken them to that place where they wanted to commit suicide. Or maybe you have even been in a dark place and had suicidal ideations and didn't know what to do and all that you were going through. You know, we all have had to deal with some things, but the reality of it is all of us don't deal with the same thing the same way. And we can look at a person and see what they're going through in life. And oftentimes, in what we're looking at, it may not be what we think it is. We may assume that it's not that heavy. It's not that deep. It's not that big. It's not that great. We may not even understand the depth of the weight that someone else is carrying and what they are going through. And so oftentimes a person who are dealing with suicidal thoughts and ideations, they may not even tell you the depth of what they're dealing with. They may not express to you their hurt or their pain because they have found themselves in a dark place where they can't see the light on the other end of the tunnel. They may not see a way out of their situation, or they just may be overwhelmed with the things that are going on in life. And so they can oftentimes go through autopilot and become functional in everyday life, but it's an autopilot type thing. They just know to get up and to do that thing every day in life, and you can look at them and assume like there's nothing wrong with them. They're not really going through anything. They're not really dealing with anything because they're doing their everyday norm. And so oftentimes the signs are there and we don't see them. Oftentimes people are dealing with things that we don't see because we're doing our own day to day. We're going through our own day to day things. And then sometimes a person can come and say, hey, I need someone to talk to. And we can be too busy in that moment, not realizing that they really just need a moment to talk and someone to sit with them, to be in the moment with them. And so it's normally in hindsight that we can realize, like, wait a minute, that person had all the signs that was showing that. Or again, maybe you might be that person that are dealing with some heavy things and need someone to talk to and need somewhere to go. And what I would say to you is that I urge you to find someone to talk to. I urge you to reach out to someone and have a conversation with them, to be able to sit down and talk to them. You know, even if you find yourself in that place that you're seeking help, or someone that you know is seeking help, you can reach out to the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by calling or texting 988. We don't want you to just listen to the voice on the other end of the radio and not have anywhere to seek help. So I encourage you to seek someone to get help, to pick up the phone and call someone. If you are a believer, call someone to sit and pray with you, not just call and say, "Can you pray for me?" but for them to pray with you and walk you through the process of whatever it is that you're going through. Because understand, you don't have to be in that place. You don't have to be in a dark place. You don't even have to do it by yourself. You may feel like you're looking around and you don't have anyone to lean on. And most of the time, that person that you can lean on is the least likeliest person that you would even think to talk to go to talk to them about what you're dealing with. So I encourage you to not sit in the space of whatever it is that you may even be going through, that you may even be carrying. And so as we move forward, we're definitely going to talk about the National Suicide Prevention Week, and then we're going to talk about, certain things dealing with suicidal ideation and attempts of suicide. I even have my own testimony where I've been down that road and I've had to face those things. And so later on in the show, I'll even, go into the depth of my own personal walk-in process and even dealing with that. But again, if you or anyone you know are seeking help, you can always contact the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by calling or texting 988. Again, if you or anyone that you know need help, go get help and don't feel like that you have to do this by yourself and that you're all alone, because everyone has had to deal with something. Everyone has had to carry a heavy weight. It's all about learning how to process it. It's about learning how to get through it and how you're going to get over it and get to the other side of what you're dealing with. So I want you to hold on a little while longer. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back in just a moment. Glow 365 TV presents Sisters of Faith, hosted by Coach Lady Q, founder of Sisters of Faith in Pink and Pearls. Lady Q is an evangelist, certified life and relationship coach with a bachelor's in pastoral care. Lady Q will be streaming on how important it is to take care of your spiritual wellness, how to release your baggage while finding God's purpose in life, and the vital skills to build stronger relationships with a solid foundation, and much, much more. Now join Lady Q every third Tuesday as we stream on YouTube at Glow 365 TV shows at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and every third Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on CRRFM.com as we talk about the mind, body, and soul. A conversation you do not want to miss, and one you will definitely want to share. Welcome back to Sisters of Faith as we continue to talk about suicide prevention as well as self-care. And I'm your host, Lady Q. First, I want to take this time to acknowledge that National Suicide Prevention Week was September 10th through the 16th. And because we are also talking about self-care, the two of them go hand in hand. So when we look at the mood and the mental capacity of a person who is going down the road of suicidal ideations and things of that nature, they do have warning signs. And so a lot of times a person who is dealing with suicidal ideations, they find themselves experiencing unbearable pain. And that unbearable pain is more mental, it's more emotional, it's feeling a heavy weight, almost as though it's this weight that they can never get rid of. No matter what they do, the weight is there. No matter the things that they try to go do, the weight still remains with them in this space. And so it gets to a point that that weight becomes unbearable. It becomes overwhelming. A person who is also dealing with suicidal thoughts, they then begin to believe within themselves that they are becoming a burden to others. And when they find themselves in a place of feeling as though that they're a burden to others, they will begin to withdraw from family and from friends. They'll begin to withdraw from activities. If they are the type of person that may have asked for advice, that may have sought you to talk about certain things, now they're not asking for advice. They don't want any advice. They're really shut off from everyone, and they're beginning to set themselves in a particular space where they're always by themselves. They're rejecting spending time, they're rejecting phone calls, text messages, any interaction. And so these are the physical signs that they are beginning to show that something is wrong, something is going on. And so they also will be in a space where they're feeling trapped. There's no way out, because understand that everything that's going on inside of them is within the mind, and their emotions based off of whatever it is that they have experienced. And maybe what they have experienced, it could have been a trauma situation. It could have been something that triggered an old trauma thought that now has them in this place of I can't get away from whatever these things are that's in the mind that's beginning to bother them and weigh them down. And so they feel trapped in these spaces, and they don't want to be bothered with anybody. And they find themselves in a space of depression, again, not wanting to be around anybody. So they have a loss of interest of even activities and everything. A person who is in this space can be irritable, they can have anxiety, and they can even go into rage where they're doing everything to push everyone away from them. Yet at the same time, they are in need of help. They are in need of someone to love them and just be present with them. They're in need for people to reach out. So sometimes when we see people that are going through these things, we say, well, I'm just going to leave this individual alone, and when they finish dealing with whatever they're dealing with, I'll be here for them. And sometimes what they need is just for you to be present in the moment with them, because anything to point out what they may be doing wrong, they could receive as more judgment. So that's more weight, more pain, that's being put on them. That's their perception of where they are, and they don't need anyone else to judge them or anyone to condemn them or anyone to put them in this place. And so when we find someone in that space, all we have to do is be present with them in the moment, to be able to sit and listen to them, sometimes without advice, right? Sometimes without giving the extra information, and they just need the presence of you just being there, and they can be able to get out everything that's sitting inside of them, that's resting inside of them, that they're dealing with. Because a lot of times, all any of us need to do is to be able to talk to someone and to be able to just get outside of our head, our thoughts, and the things that we're dealing with, right? And then once we can process all of that, then it opens up the door for you to come in, to be able to step into that space with them, to help guide or instruct them on what to do next. And sometimes, you know, it can be hard to hear a person that is dealing with a lot of pain in their life. And so, again, when we find someone dealing with all of these things that are shutting people off and dealing with depression and things of that nature, they just may need you to be present, because they very well could be dealing with suicidal ideations. So again, if you or anyone you know that are dealing with those things, and you have the thoughts of suicide that's going on inside you or someone that you know, Don't forget that you can always contact the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by calling or texting 988. I need you to hold on for me for a second, and we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're then going to talk about self care. What does that look like? What do we do? How do we take care of self? So, again, hold on, and we'll be right back.
Hey, it's your girl, Coach Lady Mia, host of The Mia Allman Show, presented by Official Woman of Culture 365 and executive producer of Glow 365 TV and radio shows. As a certified master life coach and certified in other areas of mental health counselor and practitioner, self-care and boundary settings, health and nutrition, and as a wellness advocate, I share honest conversations with individuals on various topics that affect men, women, mentally, physically, and spiritually, to celebrating our cultural heritage. So join me every first and fourth Thursday right here on Caribbean Rhythms Radio, online at crrfm.com, and also on YouTube at Glow 365 TV shows at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. You can also follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Glow 365 TV show. So tell a friend to tell their friends and join in on the conversation to find your power of glow that equals our greater level of wellness within the mind, body, and soul.
Welcome back to Sisters of Faith. I am your host, Lady Q, and thank you for joining me here on crrfm.com as we continue to talk about National Suicide Prevention Week and self-care. Now, I wanted to take this time and really share my testimony and what I have personally gone through dealing with suicidal ideations as well as suicidal attempts. And the reality of it is, I'm hoping and praying that there may be someone, that if there is someone that is going through something right now, that my life experience can help reach that person, that they know that there's hope on the other end. There's life on the other end, no matter how dark it may get. Understand that because of God being in my life and God being who God is the reason that I'm here right now. And so at a very young age, I dealt with a lot of things, but I would say one of the worst things that I had encountered was that being molested at a young age by a family member. And so when I encountered that, it over time, it led me down a very dark road and a very dark path. And I searched for love in all the wrong places. And I reached out for all the wrong people doing all the wrong things, which then led me down a road of becoming an alcoholic at a very young age, which led me down an even darker path. And so even though I was going to church, by the time I was in my teens, it just wasn't, in that time in my life, it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to be sitting in church and hearing the preach word and people telling me it's going to be okay and people saying I'm praying for you, but no one really took the time to listen to what I was going through. No one really took the time to hear the hurt and the pain that was sitting inside of me. I had more that was giving all the advice that they could give me, but really, what I needed was someone to embrace me in the moment and where I was. And so, as time went on, by the time I was in my early 20s, I had decided that life for me had nothing to offer, that it had gotten so dark and had gotten so heavy that there was nothing there, nothing for me to hold on to, no way that I can see my way out. It seemed like everything became a heavier and heavier weight, and I sunk deeper and deeper into a darker place until one night I sat down at the table and consumed as much alcohol that I could consume and take as many pills as I could take, attempting suicide, even to the point that I prayed for God to not allow me to wake up the next day. And a friend of mine who was staying with me was not supposed to be home that weekend. And she ended up coming into the house that particular night and found me and did all that she could to make sure that I stayed awake, to help me through the process once she realized what I had done. And then when I woke up the next day, I was actually angry at God at why would you allow me to wake up when I was done with life and I was over life. And so also at the same time, I was a single mom. And so that was something else. I felt that I wasn't good enough as a mother. I didn't have what it took to be a mom. I had all of these childhood trauma issues sitting on me and weighing on me, and I was just ready to give up. But God said no. And looking back at that point in that time and that friend that talked to me and told me, well, what about your son? And even in that moment, my son wasn't the thought. The thought was, I just want to just go to sleep because this is too much. I didn't see a way out. But God saw fit for me to be here. And yes, I had to go through a lot of things, but it was a few people that God began to send my way that sat and just listened and embraced me and loved me and didn't judge me and didn't make me feel as though I was condemned. And so I say that to say that although we may go through dark spaces and we can deal with all of these things, there are people that love us and care about us. There are people that God has in our space. There are people that God will send our way to help us as we go through what we go through. And so in hindsight, I'm grateful that I went through all of that, because surely I can say that there is a God. Because in all that I consumed, I shouldn't even be here in this present time and moment. And yes, it was a dark moment. And yes, it was a hard moment. And yes, I had to go through some things. But even in all of that, it is what has given me the strength to endure things that came after that. God gave me all that I need so that I can endure moving forward in life. He knew how much to put on me, that although it seemed unbearable, that all I had to do was trust him and he would get me through the process. And so in the midst of that, I can now say in hindsight, I am grateful for the experience that I experienced. I don't regret anything, because everything that I've experienced in life is a stepping stone for the next thing. And not only that, it's to help and reach someone that's going through their dark place and their dark space. Those people that need someone to sit with them and understand where they're at. And so I do look at that situation as it's really given me the ability to be able to help someone else that's in that dark space. For whatever reason that they ended up in that dark space, that I know that sometimes I just need to be present. And so God allowed me to get through that, to get to this point, that if this is reaching you and you're there, then reach out for someone to sit and be present with you, because God has something great in store for you. God hasn't given up on you, so don't give up on you. And so again, if you need to reach out to the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, you can text 988 or call 988 and talk to someone. So right now we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back in just a moment.
Hello and welcome. My name is Ronnie Walker. Allow me to introduce you to the MrRelationshipManCave.com website. Listen, gentlemen, today is not the day to show up halfway for yourself and for the woman you aim to please. Nutrition and mental health are important to fully experience a healthy and exceptional relationship. As a man, we want to make sure we have what is needed to start and finish strong. So go to www.MrRelationshipManCave.com and explore the possibilities.
Welcome back to Sisters of Faith with your host, Lady Q, as we now begin to talk about self-care. What is self-care and why is it important? You know, we are living in a day and age where, in this generation, we hear a lot about self-care. Everywhere we turn, someone is talking about they need to be focused on self-care. And so I believe that there's a fine line between self-care and that fine line between selfish care. And we have to make sure that we're not stepping into the line of being selfish, right? But we are definitely taking care of self. And so when we look at self-care is about focusing on the self and ensuring that you are mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually healthy. Right? We all have to deal with the things that are on our mind day to day. We all deal with the mental weight of what we have to do. We get up every day and we're on the go and we're in the middle of our day to day, whatever our day to day routine is. And then even with that, there's an emotional impact from the time we wake up to the time we go to bed. The people that we encounter affects us emotionally. And we also have to take care of the physical body. If we're not eating right, if we're not doing the right things for the body, then it's going to affect us physically. Our emotional state and mental state also affects the physical body. And first and foremost and ultimately, our spiritual health is definitely important. I believe that if God is not first in all that you are doing, then therefore all the other things, they may begin to just kind of waver, fall, tumble, and then you're trying to figure out things and now you have a juggling act going on because now you've come overwhelmed with all of these things. You've allowed yourself to get caught up in what's going on with your children, what's going on with your spouse, what's going on at work, even what's going on at church. What's going on with your friends and their family and different relationships among your own family. And so a lot of times we can get caught up and everything else that's going on around us. And we even get lost in the process. And it begins to take a mental toll on us, an emotional toll on us. And we find ourselves in a place of agitation. We find ourselves in these emotional roller coasters. The physical body begins to start going down and we're feeling pains we don't normally feel because also we're not getting the rest that we need to get. You know what that's like when you've been up half the night. I know I can talk about myself. I'm the type of person that I am up half the night. I am what they call a night owl. I like being up in the middle of the night. It's quiet at night. And so if I'm up half the night and I'm only getting a few hours of sleep and then I'm up early in the morning, over the course of the week, that's definitely going to take a toll. And if I am not staying in alignment with God, it is going to really throw off the rest of my routine, how I engage with people, how I interact with people, because truly my strength comes from God. So because my strength comes from God, therefore God gives me the strength to endure the course of my day. And so I also look at the self-care as using the analogy of a plane. Can you imagine being in the plane and everybody's mask dropped down from above and everybody has to put their oxygen mask on? Now, the thing that we're all told that when that mask fall down, make sure you put your mask on first and your mask is secured before you put anyone else's mask on, before you help anyone else out. When we look at our life like we look at the airplane, a lot of times what people are doing, including me, pick me, including some of us, what we're doing, that person that is going through all the things, we're on the plane trying to fix everyone's mask. Your mask is not straight. You need to put your mask on. We're trying to fix the children's mask. We're trying to fix the spouse's mask. We're trying to make sure everyone has oxygen because we want to make sure they're breathing. But all at the same time that we're making sure that they're breathing, we're losing oxygen. So sometimes you can get so caught up in the day-to-day and the things in life and the relationships that you have with people that you're taking care of everybody else's need. You're telling everyone else that they need to take care of themselves, and your oxygen mask is still hanging and you're losing oxygen and you're getting ready to pass out and your body is getting ready to give up on you, saying, I can't do this anymore and I can't handle this anymore. And your brain is trying to tell you, you're overwhelmed right now. You've gone too far. You've done too much. You have done too much work and you need a break. So just like that mask that falls down and they give the instruction, put your mask on first before you help someone else. You have to make sure that you are mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually in a good place before you can help someone else be mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually in a healthy place. So we need to take the time to take care of self in a healthy way so that we can help someone else in whatever it is that they're doing to take care of them as well. So I need you to hold on real quick for me, and we'll be right back in a moment while we take a quick break.
Food, music, and romance. The perfect combination. I am vegan chef Sandy Moraes. My sensational vegan recipes are sensational. Jerk chickpea salad, Mary Berry Bliss, apple walnut salad, and cashew cream parfait. Let's cook with love and passion and start making your sensational vegan recipes. Order your sensational vegan recipes cookbook today, $29.95 at vegantuneupcafe.com.
Glow 365 TV presents Sisters of Faith, hosted by Coach Lady Q, founder of Sisters of Faith in Pink and Pearls. Lady Q is an evangelist, certified life and relationship coach with a bachelor's in pastoral care. Lady Q will be streaming on how important it is to take care of your spiritual wellness, how to release your baggage while finding God's purpose in life, and the vital skills to build stronger relationships with a solid foundation, and much, much more. Now join Lady Q every third Tuesday as we stream on YouTube at Glow 365 TV shows at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and every third Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on CRRFM.com as we talk about the mind, body, and soul. A conversation you do not want to miss, and one you will definitely want to share. Welcome back to Sisters of Faith with your host, Lady Q, as we continue talking about self-care here on CRRFM.com. Now, as we continue to talk about self-care, the question is, what are some examples of self-care? What does that look like? You see, in Lady Q's life, what self-care looks like is really about being aligned with God and understanding that He has blessed me with this earthen vessel. So understand that God has blessed you with the earthen vessel that you are. And each and every one of us are here to handle it with care as he instructs us. So as God continues to instruct us to live this life, he will give us what we need to move forward in life. And so being in alignment with God is first and foremost because it deals with our spiritual health. How do we handle this walk in this life spiritually so that we are in alignment with God? And really what that is about taking the time to be alone, to meditate, and while you're meditating, to talk to God. Now, as we see in the Bible, Jesus oftentimes spent time by himself. He would leave and separate himself from all the people. So this is like a perfect example for us because he took the time to spend time by himself. And he spent time by himself praying. He spent time by himself talking to God. And so when we talk about our spiritual health is about being in alignment with God, which means we have to spend time with God. We have to spend that time to hear him speak to us, to give us the instruction, to give us guidance, to even meditate. And what are we meditating on? We're not meditating so that we just empty everything out. We're meditating, being in a space of gratefulness of all the things that God is doing in our life. How God continues to bless us and how God continues to be present with us, that when we take the time to spend one-on-one time with him, we can begin to see how he has moved through our life and the things that are interwoven in our life. And so meditating could be merely you sitting still, listening to the voice of God and reflecting on all the blessings. Meditating can also be you journaling, writing down all the things that God has done for you and focusing on all the good in your life through what God has given you. And then taking that time to talk with God about life choices, things that you're dealing with, things that you're going through, and listening to the voice of God to now give you the instruction on what to do next. And so with that being said, when we sit and we allow ourselves to be in that place, in that space with God, it also takes us to a space where it minimizes the distractions in life. Because the Lord would then begin to reveal certain things to us where we can see, okay, well, I was distracted by this person, or I allowed myself to get distracted because I was caught into these certain things over here. And so also self-care is not becoming distracted and overwhelmed by the things that are happening in this world. Understand that the word tells us to be in the world, but not of the world. That means don't allow ourselves to get caught up in so many worldly things that we even shut our ear off from hearing God. And our eyes are shut down from seeing God. And so we find ourselves caught up in some things that we don't want to be caught up in, and you're trying to figure out, well, wait a minute, how did I get there, and how did I end up in this situation, when that's not what God wants you to do. There's a divine plan for your life. Understand that our ways are not his ways. And because our ways are not his ways and our plans are not his plan, we may have a plan for our life, but God has a greater plan for our life. We may have a way in which we will do something, but God's way is greater than that. So we have to take the time every day to also ground ourselves. When life gets overwhelming and things are moving too much and we find ourselves distracted, another way of dealing with self-care is grounding. A grounding technique is just merely sitting still with your feet on the ground and your hands palm down on your lap and listening to all the sounds that are around you and what you smell. So you use every sense that you have, all 5 senses. What you see, what you hear, what you smell, what you taste, all of those things, and you begin to process all of those things, and it will allow you to be grounded in the moment. And it can take 2 minutes, it can take 5 minutes, it can take as long as you want it to take. But we have to learn how to separate ourselves from all of the things that are going on, and all of the noise pollution around us, and the conversations, and what's going on in the life of our children and our spouses, and say, okay, God, I need you in this moment to help guide me where I need to be, so that I'm grounded and my spiritual health is taken care of, that I hear your word and what you're speaking to me, and what is your divine plan for my life today as I move forward. You got to trust God in the process, that you are spiritually aware of who God is and whom he is in your life moving forward, and that you're willing to receive the instructions that he has for you. So being grounded, being focused in God, being aligned with God is these are examples of self-care. So we'll be right back, and we're going to take a quick break. And just hold on for a second, and we'll be right back as we dive deeper into self-care.
Dis-ease is the cure if the symptoms are consciously managed, as in soul therapy, which uses dis-ease as medicine. It exposes the root causes of the conditions, whether they be physical, in relationships, or in society. Soul therapy is complementary to all other modalities of healing or remediation because it accelerates cure, reduces suffering, and attracts the wisdom and energy to help prevent, treat, or recover from dis-ease.
Hey, this is your girl Sophie G, your real sister from the Sophie G Show, and I am giving a shout out to KUO Magazine. They're dedicated to promoting a greater level of wellness in all of us. Yes, they bring out that glow. Caribbean Under One magazine features different cultures and personalities of both men and women from within our own communities, sharing biographies and their personal stories and challenges, even their secrets as to how they overcame the toughest obstacles they faced, with the hope of inspiring others. Caribbean Under One magazine gives back, and they acknowledge by honoring the Ribbon of Survivors 365 by bringing awareness to those who have overcome and struggled with chronic illnesses and conditions. They inspire. KUO encourages and reminds us all of the true importance of having that glow in all our lives, a greater level of wellness. This is your girl Sophie G, your real sister, who promises to always keep it real. For me not lie, I'm not try. And I say, get your subscription today. Just log on, tell your friends, tell your family to join in and become a member, to subscribe to KUOmagazine.com today.
Welcome back to Sisters of Faith as we continue to talk about self-care and how to do that for ourselves. You know, again, we deal with a lot of things in life, and again, being spiritually aligned with God is one way to focus on our self-care. And another way to focus on self-care is doing self-checks. That's doing the mental checks of the things that are causing the distractions, and then eliminating those things that are unnecessary. You see, oftentimes when we get caught into the things that are causing us distractions. It's just we're used to giving and giving and giving and doing it. Remember again at the beginning when I talked about the analogy of the plane and the oxygen mask falling down and making sure that you put your mask on. You also have to look at those things that are unnecessary that you can eliminate so that you don't get distracted by it, that it's not causing problems. And so that it doesn't cause the emotional and mental weight on us. So another aspect of self-care is focusing on that mental and emotional health that we are having to deal with. And so forgiveness is an act of self-care. And you're probably saying, okay, Lady Q, how is forgiveness an act of self-care? This is how forgiveness is an act of self-care, because the word tells us that forgiveness is not for the other person, it's for self. Now, let me give you the compare and contrast. In the world, people in the world will say, this person did this to me, and I'm not forgiving them because they did thus and thus and thus. Because if I forgive them, that means I'm letting them off. No, that's not true, because that person that you are still harboring unforgiveness for, 9 times out of 10 has moved on with life. They may not even know that they have offended you. They may not even know that there was a situation, or even if they knew there was a situation, that probably so much time has gone past, they haven't even thought about it. And now you're sitting up there and you're frustrated and you're angry and you're harboring unforgiveness. And now you're emotional and you're carrying this heavy weight with you. And every time someone does something that triggered that same space that you're holding on to unforgiveness, it is adding more to that process. And then you get mad all over again. So when we look at Scripture, the scriptures tell us that God does not forgive us unless we forgive. That means unforgiveness is keeping you in a place of bondage. Unforgiveness is keeping you in a place of hurt. Unforgiveness can even take you to a space of bitterness, and you're walking around with a bitter heart while the person that you haven't forgiven is walking around free. And so with that being said, the forgiveness is an act of self-care, because you're releasing yourself from the hurt that someone else has caused you. You're releasing yourself from a place of not being bitter. You're releasing yourself so that you yourself can be forgiven when it comes to God. That you yourself can be forgiven when you're asking him, Lord, forgive me for the thing that I've done. So understanding that forgiveness sets us free. And so therefore, it takes care of the self, the heart posture of who we are. And it takes us to that place where we can then begin to get restoration and healing, which is also the self-care. Because the sit in unforgiveness means that you're in a broken place and you're in a hurt place. And so it allows you to get the restoration and healing that you need in the process, because you're set free from whatever the situation was that have had you in this place of hurt or emotionalism and these constant thoughts. And now your mental health and emotional health has taken a toll on you. And so one of those ways to deal with that is having a journal of gratitude. Write down the things that you're grateful for. That's another act of self-care. Because as you begin to write down the things that you're grateful for, you're allowing yourself to go into a positive thinking process. You are then beginning to see all the reasons of gratefulness in your life. So the more that you pour into the reasons of being grateful, the further you get away from negativity. Therefore, you're actually pouring into your mind, you're pouring into your heart, you're even pouring into your spiritual walk to be in a more positive place in this space of self-care. Because when you can be in a positive space, because you're taking care of self, it allows you now to pour positively into others. You can be grateful for all the things that God is doing. And in that moment, you can then begin to see God working in the life of others and how God wants you to work with other people to help them. You're breathing with your oxygen mask on so that you can help someone else that also needs oxygen, that also needs to breathe, that needs restoration, and that needs healing. So you have to take the time to have forgiveness for your own act of self-care, to get restoration and healing, and to have gratitude. Because with that oxygen, you can then help someone else out who is in those spaces that need healing and restoration. I would like to say it has definitely been a pleasure and a joy today being your host here at crrfm.com. And this is what I would like to leave with you. If you find yourself in a dark place, a hurt space, and just in a place trying to figure out where you are and where you're going, seek someone that can be present with you. If you are in need, call the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, dialing 988 or texting 988 in order to get help. And I want to take this moment to just encourage you. Sometimes we feel like we're at the end of our rope. And as someone once said to me, when you get to the end of your rope, take the end of the rope, tie a knot in the end, and hold on to the knot. And holding on to that knot is actually holding on to God. And when you hold on to God, God will keep you and he will hold you in his perfect peace. That in your weakness, his strength is made perfect. Trust in the Lord in all your ways and all that you're going through. Because even truly, some of us that are in the church are dealing with depression, hurt, pain, and all types of things, and even suicidal ideations. Because people go to church does not mean that they have all the answers, doesn't mean that they're all so perfect, and doesn't mean that to tell them pray your way out of it is the way to go for them. Sometimes they need you to walk with them so they know how to pray themselves out of that situation. Because sometimes praying for someone, they don't really understand the depth of prayer and what prayer is and how prayer helps. So I encourage you that when someone also comes to you, you teach them how to tie the knot in the end of the rope and hold on to the hand of Jesus and not let go. And so I encourage you to not give up. Stand firm in the Lord, that when you are weak, his strength is made perfect, which means that when you have nowhere else to go and you find yourself at the lowest low, there's nothing else you can do but look up and see God. There's always a light at the end of the tunnel. All you got to do is keep going and you'll see that light, and don't give up. Thank you for joining me here at Sisters of Faith. Join us next Thursday right here on crrfm.com as Glow 365 presents the Mia Alman Show, streaming live on www.crrfm.com at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm your girl, Coach Lady Q. Thank you for tuning in, and I will meet you here every third Thursday. For any questions or comments, you can find me on Instagram at YAGURL.LADYQ. And until next time, remember, no matter what you're going through, don't let anybody pull you down. Stay blessed. Glow 365 TV presents Sisters of Faith, hosted by Coach Lady Q, founder of Sisters of Faith in Pink and Pearls. Lady Q is an evangelist, certified life and relationship coach with a bachelor's in pastoral care. Lady Q will be streaming on how important it is to take care of your spiritual wellness, how to release your baggage while finding God's purpose in life, and the vital skills to build stronger relationships with a solid foundation, and much, much more. Now join Lady Q every third Tuesday as we stream on YouTube at Glow 365 TV shows at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and every third Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on CRRFM.com as we talk about the mind, body, and soul. A conversation you do not want to miss, and one you will definitely want to share.
Hey, it's your girl, Coach Lady Mia, host of The Mia Allman Show, presented by Official Woman of Culture 365 and executive producer of Glow 365 TV and radio shows. As a certified master life coach and certified in other areas of mental health counselor and practitioner, self-care and boundary settings, health and nutrition, and as a wellness advocate, I share honest conversations with individuals on various topics that affect men, women, mentally, physically, and spiritually, to celebrating our cultural heritage. So join me every first and fourth Thursday right here on Caribbean Rhythms Radio, online at crrfm.com, and also on YouTube at Glow 365 TV shows at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. You can also follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Glow 365 TV show. So tell a friend to tell their friends and join in on the conversation to find your power of glow that equals our greater level of wellness within the mind, body, and soul.
This is your girl, Adriana Clark, and you are now listening into Caribbean Rhythms Radio Network. I invite you to join me every Saturday for Saturday Praise, when we come and we give God all the glory and all the thanks. Tune in every Saturday, 10 a.m. till 12 p.m. and make sure you keep it locked to CRRFM.com, giving you a little bit of everything.